All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Face the Music, and thank you very much for attending Society of Tastemakers and Elegant People, aka STEP's curated panel here today called The Digital Natives. Before we get going, I think it definitely warrants a mention. Our thoughts go out to everybody in Paris right now, and especially those who are being held hostage as a result of attending a concert, which is just absolutely deplorable. So hopefully positive vibes and everything sorts itself out there soon enough. But we'll get on with today's panel. So today everything's about music online, and we've collected some of who we've affectionately titled Melbourne's biggest internet music nerds. I hope nobody had a problem with that.
You're gonna get sued by Fantastic.
I know, right? So I thought we'd start by introducing the panel. To my right, we have Lachlan. And Lachlan, I meant to ask you, I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to pronounce your surname. I thought I'd let you.
I was actually on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire last week, and Eddie Maguire did the same thing. But he like just stumbled his way through it. It's Kanonyuk.
Lachlan Kanonyuk, the Australian and New Zealand editor of Thump, and a very accomplished freelance music journalist as well, formerly of The Vine, Faster Louder, Mess and Noise, many titles. To his right, we have Lucy Damon, the current editor of Australian music news website Tone Deaf. To her right, we have Laura Semple, the founder of Melbourne-based music and lifestyle blog Sample Size. To her right, we have Kish Lal, a podcaster on Poncho TV for Club Angels, a freelance music journalist for Thump, Stony Roads, and a whole host of other publications. And on the far side, we have Mackie Corbett, the editor of Cool Accidents, Melbourne-based music blog as well. So before we get underway, I thought we'd give each panelist an opportunity to tell us a little bit about the path that led them to where they are today. And yeah, how did you get your start, and where did it all begin, and how did you arrive at where you are now? We'll start with Lachlan.
So I moved to Melbourne nearly 10 years ago from country Victoria. Studied writing for a few years, then somewhat reluctantly jumped into music journalism, just fired off a few live reviews to Beat magazine. I think it was LCD Sound System and Hot Chip by memory. And yeah, just went from there, sort of jumped into Beat magazine, then eventually became their online content manager. I was let go of that after like 8 months, even though I thought, oh, the online side is safe, but that wasn't the case. And so that sort of triggered me freelancing, like pitched everywhere, and yeah, sort of settled into like Faster Louder, then eventually editor for Mess and Noise, and then when Mess and Noise sort of shut up shop in whatever capacity, jumped over to Thump at Vice, which I am currently at. I still freelance for Beat magazine. I'm still there after 5 years and enjoying that, and yeah.
Lucy.
I started doing music stuff when I was about 15, 16. I started doing reviews. I'm from country Victoria as well, and I started doing reviews for, we had a street press there called Rival, and I found out that if I said I reviewed it, I could get in for free when I was 15 and get into pubs, which was pretty sick without my parents. So that worked out pretty well for a while. Then that shut up, and then basically I moved to Melbourne when I finished high school, did a little bit of music stuff here and there. Then I studied journalism for a year and a half, didn't really like it, so I did Profcom, and then I basically started doing music PR stuff. When I graduated from uni, which was 2 years ago now, there was a job opportunity at Tone Deaf, so I was lucky enough to get that, so I'm a full-time editor at Tone Deaf now. So yeah.
Laura?
I started music when I was really young, about 6 years old. I started piano and I've just followed it ever since. I was posting on Facebook way too much when I was in uni, so I thought I'd start a blog, and that was Sample Size. It started off as a fashion blog, and that's why like my last name's Semple, and I called it Sample Size because like models wear samples, so it kind of worked. Yeah, and then I found I didn't have much to talk about with fashion, so I went back to what I was really into, which was music. And I'm from Central Queensland, so I moved from Central Queensland to Melbourne to work for a PR company called Rara PR, which is more like, I guess, products rather than music and everything. And I gave that up and really tried hard to pursue a music career and hounded people like Zach to give me an internship. And then from there I started freelancing, and I now freelance for Shuttle Electric, Handsome Tours and Vice Royalty. And I'm studying Master of Comms, so yeah.
Thank you. Kish?
Well, I started writing after I broke my ankle at the club. And basically I'm really embarrassed of crutches. Well, I was embarrassed of crutches. I don't judge anyone on crutches, but I was I was so embarrassed of my crutches that I didn't leave the house for like 2 months. There wasn't much to do besides, I don't know, crawl around because my ankle was broken. So I started writing about electronic music, which I recently got into at the time. I think I was 18. Yeah, that's when you break your ankle at the club, I guess. And I started doing that, and then I started realizing people were reading my work, which was cool. I didn't expect that to happen. And then people started asking me to write for them. I wrote for this weird Portuguese blog once for a few months. And then it's called Golden Scissors. I think it's still kicking around, actually. Yeah, it's cool. Then I started writing for Stony Roads. Then from there, people asked me to work in PR. You actually asked me to work in PR, even though I'd never done PR work, which is cool. I know how to do it now. And from there, I just kept writing for people. I worked for Beat, Vice, and I now write for Thump as well. And yeah, that's pretty much how it ended up.
Thank you. And what about you, Mackie?
My start, I was sort of down a real estate marketing path when all of a sudden I had aspirations to become a struggle Australian rapper, which I gave a red hot go for a minute. And then by way of that, sort of got into music retail because you need something to pay the bills. And then the label that put out our record offered me a job. So I took that. So I worked for Creative Vibes for years, then ran through to Inertia, so kind of a really indie background. Then I sold my soul to the devil and got a job at Warner Music by the struggle beat maker that used to be in our group, so it was all kind of connected. And from there I started in a sales background, moved into marketing, and then were kind of given the keys to Cool Accidents, which is Warner's in-house blog. And I'm kind of like a content creator, curator, all-round nice guy.
Indeed. Thank you very much. So I want to start the conversation today about music criticism online. The barriers to entry to starting a music blog are basically, as long as you have an internet connection, anybody can give it a crack. What is the definition between like music blogging and just talking about music online, and what constitutes music criticism online? And is there a definition? Is there a line somewhere between your mate's blogspot and Pitchfork?
I think a few years ago it was kind of blurred. Between that, and then sort of there was cross-pollination between like criticism and blogging, and then it became one. Recently, it seems to have, blogging has seemed to be absorbed by music criticism to the point where music criticism is like just an umbrella term for all of that. And yeah, but now there's sort of this, I don't know, big chasm between like really entry-level bloggers and that might just do a few entries and go, this is kind of pointless. And then like Pitchfork, and then even in between like Stereo Gum, people, I don't know, might not be even looking towards them for music criticism as much anymore. And
Yeah.
if people even are looking for music criticism, which Thump doesn't really do music criticism.
Sure.
As in reviews and...
So do you see your role as more of that of a curator, and you're simply presenting content and letting people make up their own minds about it, as opposed to telling them what's good and what's not?
I think that's entirely separate, perhaps. Like, because when I was at Mess and Noise, it was focused on music criticism, like album reviews, and then that's not sustainable in that capacity, obviously, by the owners of Mess and Noise.
Right.
So that finished, and I still do music criticism each week for Beat, which
Sure.
it's been doing for 25 years, and it was sort of the thing. however many years ago where it was like, oh, street press is dying, it's all about the web.
Yeah.
Now I think it's sort of balanced out a bit, and maybe even like you can still pick up beat or the music each week, and there's music criticism there where you could go to Faster Louder and a few reviews here and there, but then there's criticism presented as like content.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? Like,
Yeah, I think like for the smaller blogs and stuff like that, it's a bit more filtered. You're kind of cautious of what you do say because you don't necessarily want to annoy people, where in a larger blog you can kind of like, they've got thousands and millions of people reading the articles, so no matter what you say, people are going to go on there, so you're not as filtered.
right, okay. Well, that brings me to the next question I had for you guys. There's an anecdote about famous urban hip-hop titled Complex magazine in the mid-2000s when the director just walked out onto the office floor and he said, asked for everyone's attention and said, "You're all bloggers now. We're going completely online and just jumping into this thing." And it was a time when a lot of the big media corporations got interested in music blogging, and they began to launch their own blogs and sites or buy into successful, for instance, Complex bought Pigeons and Planes and these sorts of things. So you've got the Spin blogging network, the Vice blogging network. Closer to home, we had Sound Alliance, which is now Junkie Media, Fairfax, Peer Group. There's a whole host of them. Represented today, we have, I guess, a mix of independent sites and blogs and others that are attached to global corporate networks. But I wanted to start with Lucy and Laura, both of which, sit on independent music websites. What advantages are there, or are there any advantages to being independent in a world that is like largely corporatized online?
I think there are. I think that when I look at Tone Deaf, I don't really compare it to like Vice or the Vice network or even like the Junkie network. In a lot of ways, Tone Deaf seems to be kind of like the country paper version of like the music internet world. So like we kind of we'll compete with Vice the same way that like my Wangaratta Chronicle competes with like the Age, which is to say not really. So like if you have a look at like Tone Deaf, a lot of what we write is super local stuff. Like if you had a word cloud and like put together all the words that we've ever published, I reckon like 40% will say local or Aussie. Like that's all we write about, and that's probably because it works for us. Like we can't compete with these huge global networks, but we don't really need to. Like there's so many amazing stories going on here in Australia that we kind of focus on that, and it works for us when it comes to readership and like the kind of the responses that we get. People care a lot about Australian stories, and the local people want to read local stories. So when it comes to that,
Sure. So I mean, I guess like what you're saying in a sense is that like you can be a really successful independent title if you operate within a niche that you cater,
Totally.
that you're highly catering towards.
Totally.
Has that been
100%.
your experience again with the even smaller independent blog with sample size?
I definitely think like, I mean, there's so many small blogs out there. Of course, we've got heaps of competitors and everything, but like, I mean, I run my own blog, so whatever I want to do is like what happens. And we kind of have that ethos with like all the contributors, whatever they want to write, they get to write, and it's their personality. And I think that's what's helped us do so well, is that it's not really too controlled, and they can say it in their own words. It's not like a structured sort of way.
Sure, so there's a lot of freedom that comes with being independent as well. Lockie, what's the other side of the coin like? Is there a lot of freedom working within the confines of a corporate blogging network, or?
There's a lot of, like, it was kind of surprising because it was an abrupt change, like within a week, where I went from Mess and Noise, where it was like, hey, here's the keys, do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
And I did whatever the fuck I wanted. It was a lot of fun, but I wasn't paid that well. And then going to Vice, like straight into Thump and saying, hey, here's the keys to Thump Australia. And it's this huge, like, the CMS for Mess and Noise was literally 12 years old, whereas, and I was like, holy shit. And then going to this completely like fancy schmicko CMS for Thump, I was like, holy shit. And then like connected with global offices, as in like Mexico Thump is huge, Brazil, and I was like a little bit overwhelmed, but I was like, oh, this is crazy. But along with that, there's protocol you have to follow, but it's still, in terms of content, a lot of freedom. Like, they're like, cool, just do whatever you want, and if we can translate it globally, we can do it. Like, I think I'll say something to the US, like, hey, we've got this great article, like, Kish's stuff, and I'm like, well, there might be some Australian local slang, like pingers, that's ecstasy, and like, and
Surely not in an article that Kish wrote.
No, God, no.
Mackie, you are kind of a bit of in a different scenario in that Cool Accidents, as you mentioned, is a Warner Brothers owned and operated label blog. So it functions a little bit differently. I mean, I guess in a sense, it's your wage is to curate a blog on behalf of the label.
Yeah.
What was the philosophy behind Warner Brothers wanting to enter the blog community?
I guess more than anything, it started. Tony Harlow, MD of Warner Music Australia, is probably as big a music nerd as us all combined, and then some. And he just wanted a platform for us internally to kind of talk about music. So, to be completely honest, Cool Accidents has been 4 years in the making to where it is now. But that early stage, when I was first handed the keys to it, it was more of an intranet-y type situation that, you know, was meant to kind of exist of Warner people in all different roles talking about music they love, pop culture stuff, not limited to Warner. You know, that was laid clearly from the get-go. It's like, if music's good, we'll talk about it and we'll share it. And then it sort of started to find its feet a little bit, I guess, and I realised I wasn't getting as much content from the internal cats because, you know, someone's got to take Jason Derulo to get him to an interview on time. They don't have time to write me something. Yeah. And not everyone's a writer. I'm not a writer by any stretch of the imagination. Tony Harlow is a journalist trapped in the body of a music director for a major record label. So then I went external, and that's where I started to approach people, you know, who I saw and I loved their work, so I could kind of make it a bigger thing, because I realised we had something. With a major label, the best thing we've got is access to artists, and you know, anyone here that runs a smaller blog can just that's.
And what percentage
gold.
would you say was stuff that you covered on the blog that came internal, music-wise, from within the Warner family, or external and stuff you're just digging? And is there any restrictions on what you can and can't cover?
There are absolutely no restrictions,
That's
and
great.
I mean, that's the beauty of it. There is, like, in terms of, like, you know, Wax Volcanic, I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he's an amazing Melbourne writer who was one of the cats I found with a Tumblr with, you know, 10 followers, loved his writing, got him on board, and, you know, he's written for a lot of big, you know, kind of corporate-y things, and he said that Cool Accents is the only time he's had zero editorial input. Like, if I like someone and I seek them out because I like their work, I'm not going to get them to then write and go through it with, you know, a fine-tooth comb. I'll go through it with a wide-set comb and make sure everything's all right. But in terms of artists and a percentage, there is absolutely no percentage. Obviously, we highlight a lot of Warner artists because at the end of the day, you know, we're trying to sell our own artists' records.
Sure.
But Cool Accidents quickly found its feet in terms of being a sort of Triple J, Triple R, vibey type place. So, you know, the commercial marketing team aren't going to come to me and say we need to put up an article about Michael Bublé's Christmas record on Cool Accidents. So it was kind of cool. Like, and at first we had to, you know, you were there in the early stages,
like a learning curve,
trying to work out what it was.
Yeah.
And I think it's sort of now become a good spot. And to be honest, like, you know, there's the Warner Music thing, but out of all the kind of blogs, I feel like Cool Accidents has, and I'm pretty proud of it, like a real fan-made kind of
community or
vibe to it. And a lot of that stems from, because my contributors, Wax Volcanic, the interns, two kids from Sydney that I get to do a lot of stuff for us, you know, are from that background. You can't fake. Like I said earlier, I have an independent background, so yes, Warner Music pays my salary, which could do with some adjusting, but I never feel like I'm, you know,
trapped
under the Russian multi-billionaire that runs the company. It's its own thing.
Well, on the topic of money, actually, that's kind of where I want to go to next. But just quickly, I totally forgot to mention at the top of the panel. Throughout the course of the panel, we'd like to invite you guys to ask questions via Twitter. Just use the hashtag StepMelbourne. Yeah, someone's already. Ash has already found the hashtag. So yeah, by all means, please ask questions, and at the end of the conclusion, we're gonna pull some off the screen for you. So I want to talk. I want to talk about money and monetization of music online. Wait till the end. In 2015, is there still like a market difference between what online music journalists get paid compared to print music journalists? I thought, Lockie, you might be in a position to, elucidate on this one.
I don't think there is a difference in terms of like maybe rate, but just in terms of frequency or whatever, like it's print is obviously shrinking and it's massive. Like when I started out like 5 years ago, everyone I looked up to was like, oh, I want to do that. And then like slowly there was this attrition where everyone at that level was sort of brought down to my level more than me going to their level.
Yeah.
We've got a budget at Thump. We can pay people to write. And I think it's more so a problem of wanting people to be motivated to write. And money is like a big part of it, but it's not everything.
Yeah.
Like when I started Mess and Noise, I was like, hey, we've got this budget, and tried to get all the classic Mess and Noise writers like, hey, let's get the team back together. Yeah. And everyone was like, I've got a job and I can't be fucked. And I was like, that's completely fair enough. And then the flip side of that, like when I finished up at Mess and Noise, the last month I was like, hey, I've got my writing budget cut. I don't write for free. I will never ask anyone to write for free.
Yeah.
But still there are writers like Max Easton going, hey, well, fuck it. Like I'll just put it on my blog anyway. So just have it. And I'm like, cool.
Sure.
And yeah, so the motivation, it's about the money, but it's not all about the money. And there's no difference between print and
in terms of
online.
so
because like print is online. Online isn't really print.
Right.
Like,
okay. And I guess like you mentioned just then, there are people out there who are passionate music fans and music writers who are prepared to write for free. I was interested, particularly among some of the freelancers here, Kish and Laura as well. Like, at what point is there an expectation that you were going to be paid for your work? Like, how long can you write for free, and then you just eventually go like, no, hang on, I've got 100 published articles. I need some kind of compensation for this.
Yeah, it takes a while to be paid.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is for everyone, but I've written for free for like 7 years.
Yeah.
So that's a long time, I guess.
Totally.
And it's kind of hard to find a writing gig, especially online, because I think I've mostly done online because I started online.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to find someone that'll pay you, which sucks.
Yeah.
I guess when I started writing for Thump, Lockie said he'd pay me. I was like, that's pretty sick. I'll keep doing that. And it's true. It's a good motivation because I'm at the point in writing where it is hard to be motivated to write, especially when you have a job and you have like cool parties you want to go to. You don't want to be sitting at home writing for free. And yeah, so I've started writing less because I don't get paid for certain things. But I'll do it for a free ticket.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
it's almost like...
Do you think it's acceptable, like when you're starting out at least, to have that compensation for reviews and stuff in the form of festival tickets or gig tickets or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's really important.
Yeah,
it's important because lots of people just assume you're going to write for free these days, and I don't think that's fair. It's work, and people deserve to be paid in some way for their writing.
And how do you feel about that, Laura? I know that like the way that Sample Size works, it's very much passionate collection of writers who volunteer their time.
I totally agree with that. I think like for Sample Size, we don't make any money at all, at all. Everybody, including myself, does it all for free.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of the type of blog where it's a lot of writers that are just starting out, so they've never written for a blog before, so they kind of like can make all the mistakes with us and prepare themselves for to see if it's something they do like. And I try really hard to give them opportunities that they want, like whatever festival they want to apply for, or if they want to interview an artist, or like if we're putting on a big gig or something like that, they can help and like learn the skills of like a booking agent or like PR and all that kind of stuff. So it's not just straight writing, they can learn some industry stuff as well. So there's always
that networking aspect of it.
Networking. And I think there's always a trade-off. Like I freelance for digital marketing, PR and social media, and for years and years and years I did a lot of that for free for friends and everything. And I think like the best advice I was ever given was kind of like know what you're worth and know when to say, no, you have to pay me. Even if it's your friends, you need to be like, look, if I'm spending 5 hours doing this work for you, I'm losing out on a whole day at my other job. So
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I want to switch and now talk about monetization of music online from a site's perspective. One thing that I see more and more as a publicist these days is sites, and it's particularly rife in the EDM community. To quote EDMsource.com, if you believe that your music has what it takes to be exposed to our followers, record labels, and other producers, then the $20 will be worth it. And there's a whole host of sites online that are accepting payment in exchange for coverage. Is this a path that you guys would recommend any artists go down? Like, is there any?
I'd recommend, like, if you want publicity,
Yeah.
like, you have to pay for it unless you're, like,
In some
incredibly
form.
savvy. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, because you can say, oh, all this native content shit. Like, Beat Magazine, the street press, it's been, like, fucking 25 years. If you want a story, you have to pay for it. Like,
Yeah.
that's how it works. And, be smart as an artist. There's no, like, one set rule for you as an artist, like, say, hey, you need to, like, pay
Yeah.
this money to this person. You need to put $25 behind your Facebook post after you do this.
Yeah.
It's just like experimenting, having like a bit of fun with it in that regard, and knowing what works for you and what will work for your audience and what will work for you getting a broader audience. Like,
Sure.
We don't really do, well, we don't do like
Paid for posts.
Yeah, we don't do paid for posts at Thump, of course, but like.
But what about in other forms, like a presents package or something like that? If an artist wanted their tour to be presented by Thump or by Tone Deaf, for instance, there's a bit of an agreement that it's going to come accompanied with some editorial or something like that.
So we do that, and that's like, it's a mutually beneficial thing. It's like,
Sure.
You put like the Thump logo on your poster, and we'll interview. Like, chances are we could interview you anyway, but like if you want the Thump logo on your posters, so you have that some sort of
Brand
like,
alliance.
yeah. This sounds like fucking horseshit, but like, yeah.
No,
like,
it's true that my next question was, is it a mutually beneficial arrangement? I mean, in the sense that they are providing money to allow you guys to continue doing what you're doing, and at the same time, they're having the exposure via your brand and your audience and stuff like that. It doesn't seem immoral. It works for everyone, sort of.
It's an ecosystem.
Yeah, it's interesting you just said. My next question was actually about native advertising, and for those of you who are not familiar with that term, it's kind of a buzzy marketer term. Basically means like branded content or sponsored content, sometimes described as like advertising disguised as editorial or something like that. But Lockie makes a really good point. Like, this is nothing new. This is sort of something that we talk about in an online sense in the last year or two with Junkie Media and these sorts of brands experiencing enormous ad revenue from native advertising. But yeah, really, publicists and record labels and stuff have always.
Well, we had a Vice meeting the other day, and they're like, Shane Smith said, we invented native content, like which Vice sort of made their buck with like video content,
Yeah.
which is true. But yeah, like street press, which NME just went street press.
Right.
As if like an innovative thing. I was like, no, like it's been happening for decades.
Yeah, so when they say that, like, what was the statistic that I read the other day? Like more than half of all of Junkie Media's ad revenue comes from native advertising these days, which sort of infers that quite a lot of content on these sites is influenced by brands. Is there any danger in that? Like, is there a quota that you've got to go like, okay, no, there needs to be a certain amount of like editor-driven content versus just letting brands influence what we cover?
We don't really do that much native content at Thump, like in terms of editorial. We do some, and we say to them, like, we need control. Like, if you tell us to do content and you like interfere and it turns out shit content, then it's not good for you.
Yeah.
Like, not good for you, not good for us. Like, to bring up NME again, they did a horrific native content thing online where it was like, just like a really basic idea, like the 10 best tracks of the year so far by new artists.
Oh no.
And it was, hey, we listened to these on a Windows 10 Surface Pro. And they just like kept on mentioning that. And
Really
it's like,
chill.
I can't imagine anyone reading that going, well, this is just like a shitty ad.
This is an
Like,
ad, yeah.
fuck this off.
Native advertising gone very wrong. Mackie, what is it like working, like, does Cool Accidents have a commercial imperative at all? Or like, are there a different set of goals for the blog?
That's where we're kind of just blessed, I guess, in the fact that we do have a .com. Most of our activity and our engagement exists on Facebook, while everyone else is kind of crying poor and whinging about that. We actually sort of have gone from strength to strength in that department.
Right.
And a lot of that has to do because we don't have to meet any ad revenue, or we don't have to, you know, do the Stony Roads and have like a massive, you know, banner on the page and that stuff. Because I always thought, you know, I love Stony Roads as a blog, but when you go to that blog and you just hit with that banner, it's like, oh damn, I don't even get to see any content yet.
Sure.
I wanted our site, because I'm kind of OCD, I wanted it to be really clean and minimal, and I didn't want any gaudy ads that didn't talk to it. In saying that, in our new website, we do have ad units that we can insert, and I did Inertia a solid and put up a few banner ads for their festival that's coming up in Berry, just to try it and see. So it wasn't like, sweet, let's put up, you know, the new Jason Derulo single by now. So again, I'm open for us to try and maybe go down that path. And to be completely honest, we're probably absolutely stupid that we're not doing it, because we do have good traffic.
Yeah.
You know, the .com numbers are okay, but sorry, tangents, but we can exist on a social network and not have to like kick people off places.
Yeah.
If we do our longer form stuff, then we'll say, you know, go check it out here. But, you know, we don't have to do the clickbaity kind of title stuff to drive people to the .com to then impress people that we're trying to make money in selling ads.
This is great. Every time I get to you, Mackie, you have a magical way of segueing into what I was going to ask next.
I did read the notes.
It's almost as if you've seen the notes. Social media, like you mentioned, like, yeah, you know, a vast majority of your community of Cool Accidents is Facebook-based. Is it not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so there was this quote, again, it came from the founder of Pigeons and Planes, a big blog in the States, and he said, you know, social media is the lifeblood of any online publication. I wanted to know, with everyone on the panel, like, to what extent do you agree or disagree with that statement? How important is social media? It's intrinsically linked these days.
I think by social media, it's pretty much just Facebook. Like Twitter does drive some content, but it's mainly for newsy stuff.
Okay.
Facebook is, it is pretty much a lifeblood, and it is the case, like, in every editor's mind, is like, well, what if they change the goalposts again? Like, which they have, like, over the years.
Yeah.
Like, you need to constantly adapt. Like,
so I think what Lockie's referring to there is, like, as most of you have Facebook fan pages, be aware, they change the algorithm that prevents you from reaching the full capacity of your fan base on a Facebook page without boosting or promoting the post, which obviously means it's gone from being able to broadcast to your audience for free to at a cost. So is there a danger, though, like, you know, with Mackie, Tone Deaf, Thump, you guys have these enormous Facebook communities. Like you said, like, is there a fear that they're going to continuously move the goalposts and it's going to become more and more expensive to reach your own audience?
I think, like, if they change it again like that, it's just a matter of getting good content. Like, it's because we can boost any post, obviously, but unless it's good, it won't sort of catch and, like, take off. So if we've got good content, we say, hey, we've got, like, a Facebook budget, we're like, hey, put it on this, and it boosts it, and, like, it's being, like, savvy and smart. Like, there's no set rule, like, hey, you do this and you get this. It's like, hey, if we do this, we might get this, and, like, do this.
And what about you, Lucy? What percentage of posts and stuff on Tone Deaf do you guys boost or promote?
We only started boosting stuff maybe like 6 months ago.
Okay.
Before then, it was every time we think we've figured out the algorithm, like you said, they just change it completely. They fuck with you so bad. But, like, it really dictates Facebook specifically. Our Twitter followers like aren't that big. We need to work on that a little bit more. But with Facebook, it's so huge, and it kind of dictates how we publish, like what time we publish certain things. Like, we'll start in the morning, we'll have our news meeting and all that sort of stuff, and we'll go, what are we going to do our opening story? Because we don't have a 24-hour news cycle. We do like 9 to 5. So we'll go, we have to have this big story, because we kind of figure that once people start reading that story, it kind of lets you, I feel like Facebook, now that I say this, they're going to change it. But, like, it's like, once
Zuckerberg out there.
that's it. Once they kind of Facebook notices that people are interested in what you're posting, then they'll kind of let you do more and more and more. So
Okay.
what we post on Facebook and our times, super deliberate. We don't schedule anything because
Right.
we need to post it at that time, because otherwise, if it doesn't work, there's a lot of people that won't come to the website. But that said, we do have like our daily EDM as well. So
Yeah.
basically that that is kind of like our substitute. So if Facebook is being a bitch, we kind of have to rely on that a lot. And we get a lot of readers from that. Like I'd say almost 50-50. So that's kind of like our deadline. That's like a 1:30 lunchtime thing, and we work like
Right.
crazy until then, because that's equally as important as Facebook to us.
Okay, cool. Now, both of you guys mentioned Twitter briefly. And like you said, you mentioned that, yeah, it is a good platform for breaking news. I wondered, like, you know, Twitter is like the fastest way to get news in the world these days. How much do you guys as editors and journalists rely on Twitter to actually, as a news agency? Like, do you sometimes wake up and, Lucy, you walk out of that meeting at Tone Deaf and you've got your stories for the day, and then you check Twitter and go, oh shit, you know, Justin Bieber just dropped a new track and we're not on it? Or something like...
Not for Tone Deaf, because I guess like when it comes to breaking news stories, we can't do it as well as The Guardian does it. We can't do it as well as Pitchfork does it. So we kind of try. We'll do a couple of breaking stories, but a lot of our breaking stories will be super local stuff. So
Okay.
Twitter's a little bit less relevant to us.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And what about you guys, Mackie, Lockie, with new tracks and stuff like that? I mean, do you ever rely on Twitter as a information source?
Not at all. Like, just because I don't have the resources here to
Yeah.
do newsy stuff, like I sort
Okay.
of wake up and say, this is what I got to do today. If there's new stuff, like I can't really do it.
Yeah.
Kind of rely on the US. Like last night at 6 o'clock, I had a message from the US saying, hey, we're going to break this news story.
Yeah.
Can you do it? And I was like, well, I'm like 3 beers deep and probably no. And they're like, cool, we'll find someone else. Like, and yeah, just I don't rely on Twitter for breaking news really, because it's the machine of the music industry. It's probably in my inbox already.
Okay, yeah.
I just use Twitter for shit jokes.
Well, so now I want to talk about like the, you know, Twitter, case in point, talk about other uses of Twitter, right? So Twitter is like, why do you think it is so popular among people in the media and the arts and journalists and these sorts of things? I want to throw to Kish on this one, because if anyone doesn't already follow Kish on Twitter, you should. She's hilarious.
What's your name at the moment on Twitter?
See you in court.
Well, what's the appeal of Twitter, and what's the Twitter community, and how do you use it, I guess, professionally and personally?
I don't think my Twitter's professional at all, so maybe I won't answer that. But yeah, I think Twitter's amazing. I get all my news from Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm constantly on it. It's
Likewise.
constantly updating.
Mhm.
It's incredible. And I think the appeal is that it's kind of just really raw,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of like skip the middleman with famous people. Well,
Yeah.
some famous people who control their own Twitters. And it's just really interesting to see that side of a celebrity or that side of a person. And people are just constantly on there just talking nonsense. And it's just really interesting to see people talk nonsense all the time. I guess.
But have you ever had any like real life like outcomes from things that began on Twitter? Did you ever link up with musicians and end up reviewing them, or jobs or anything like that? Or
Yeah, it does happen actually. Just sometimes, happened, this isn't kind of that relevant, but yesterday I DJ'd an RMIT graduate party from Twitter. Someone was looking for a female DJ.
Yeah.
Someone linked me in. I had no idea who these people were, by the way.
right.
Linked me in, and I was like, yeah, cool, I'll do that. That sounds fun. And that happened. And it's happened with writing, I guess. I've met DJs on Twitter and interviewed them that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's super incredible. If you're not on Twitter, you should be on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But do you find it's quite weird? Like, everyone here is quite a prolific tweeter. Mackie, do you have a personal Twitter, or you just have the Cool Accidents one?
No, yeah, we do just have I do have one that exists somewhere, but it's our weakest link
Right.
by a mile. I'm hopeless at, like, I'll go, I should, and Twitter, that medium, to be that
Yep.
kind of, have that sort of, stance on it is not the right. Twitter's just, you blink and you miss it, and you've got to
Yeah.
be on it. So I'll go, shit, I did that great post, and then
Is there an argument to say that, like, from any website though, like you have to pick your platforms online? You can't necessarily spread yourselves too thin. Laura, what's been your experience with social media and sample size? Are there like particular platforms that you have focused on?
Yeah, I mean, like, because I come from a social media background, that's my job. Like, it's definitely something that we try and be pretty smart about. I guess Facebook, we're a lot more filtered in the way that we say things. It's more of a like, here's our latest article, where Twitter, we're more funny and witty, and like Alex, who's like our music person, he just tweets, and he's definitely connected with a lot of bands that way, and I think that's how we've made lots of relationships, is through our Twitter. And then we use Instagram. We used to use it heaps when I had more time, but now, because I use it for everybody else as well, I don't do it so much. So we generally use Instagram. It's more of a platform that should be a behind the scenes, so that people can sort of see, like, what it's like in a day of a life of. But we use it a lot more for like Instagram takeovers, so bands will use our Instagram instead now. So I think it's just sort of knowing each platform is different age groups as well. Like Instagram's a very young age group, so it's, I think it's important. It's definitely important to be on every platform, but knowing how they work and who's reading and watching and all of that. And like, we post on Facebook like every couple of hours, and because we do that, we don't have a peak time where we have more views. It's now people know that we're on there all the time. They're always viewing it. So yeah, it's just knowing how to work it.
Yeah, and a lot of those things that you described, like, probably fall under the banner of like a brand personality or something for sample size as a brand. But also, the social media is really great for like personal branding. And I wanted to throw back to Kish on this one as well. What is like your definition of personal branding, and is it important as an individual in the entertainment industry?
Yeah, it's super important. I think the way people consume kind of media these days is heavily reliant on your personal brand.
Yeah.
Is personal brand like a lame thing to say now? I don't
know.
But yeah, it's just kind of like, I guess, how you project yourself, and that's so important to fans and media, and it just kind of influences how you're projected into the world.
Sure.
Yeah.
And do you find that people that may have heard you and they only know you from the internet, like they only know you from Twitter or Instagram or Club Angels or something like that, meet you IRL and they have an expectation of who you are based on what you put out online?
Yeah, it really stresses me out. Like, I'm not that funny in person. So like, to be as funny as I am on Twitter in person is really stressful. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you, like, just interesting news story that was in the media last couple of weeks was recently retired Insta model came out and said social media is not real life, which I think she was under the impression it was like some kind of a revelation. But I wanted to ask you, like, did anyone really think social media was real life to begin with? And do you think there's any problem that it isn't?
Well, I have like a love-hate relationship with this story. I think what she's doing is kind of good, like, because I've forgotten her name, actually.
She's got a really
Asena
weird
O'Neill.
name.
What was that?
Asena O'Neill.
Oh, okay, I won't say it. Yeah, I think she's really young. I think she's only 19 now. So she's had social media since she was 12, I think she said in an interview. Right. So I think that's a bit different to me. I'm 25, and I was on MySpace at like 14, 15. That's pretty young too, but it hasn't consumed my life in the same way it's consumed hers. And I think a lot of younger people don't realize it's not real life.
Okay.
I think it's different to the way I've consumed social media. So I think it's good for that, so younger people are realizing it's not real life and everything's photoshopped, whereas I already know that. But I also love social media. And the best thing about it is that it's not real, and you get to Photoshop your pics and take 100 different takes of your selfie because you want the right angle. And I think everyone knows that, but a lot of younger people don't know that.
There you go.
Nice.
Thank you, Kish. Speaking of content, back in 1996,
that was a weak segue, by the way. Speaking of content.
They're getting worse. Bill Gates famously said content is king back in the mid 90s. It's to run a successful website, it's all about the content. Mackie, I wanted to talk to you because I think you have a really content fetish at Cool Accident. So you guys generate an enormous amount of memes and GIFs and infographics. What's the point, and how do people engage with them?
I guess it was kind of one of those things where we just started doing a couple of memes, and that's helped form Cool Accidents' identity, that it is sort of a fun music source, and all the memes, most of the memes we generate ourselves. And a lot of that comes back to that Facebook algorithm and EdgeRank or whatever one you want to call it, because the proof is in the pudding. If you have like successful posts that boost pretty hard, there is somewhat of a halo effect around that. So Cool Accidents is kind of this rock and roll platform where at the end of the day we are all music lovers, and we, I know you always harp on about how great our playlists are and stuff. We do have
very good.
That tastemaker kind of thing, and then I love a pun. Like, I cannot help myself. So if something happens and we want to report on it, we will create a meme.
What's been your most famous creation in terms of virality to this point?
We've had a couple of good ones. Like, one of the early Cool Accidents things we did was Deb Spoon's Perry does the Black Keys. I don't know if anyone ever saw that, but it's a YouTube video that I think it's up to like 1.6 million views now. We targeted this Australia's Got Talent grandma from Perth and got her to play the spoons to Lonely Boy, and that went mental. And I remember sitting there when because the beauty of it was, I think with all the content we've done, like, it's always, like I said, that fan-made feel. And yes, it's funded by a major label, but I kind of like reached out to her. I was like, we can bring a film crew over, like I'll come over. And she's like, oh no, my neighbour up the road's got a camera and stuff. So I was just like, yes, amazing, because I knew that that was going to have the effect that I wanted, and it looked super organic. And the Black Keys shared it. She ended up on Ellen talking about it, The Tonight Show, all these things. Like, it was the first proper viral thing we've done. And then more in that Facebook space, I guess we've had some pretty epic ones.
Were you involved with you mentioned the interns before? They create a lot of, Sydney Blog, who create a lot of content for Cool Accidents. Yeah. Was the whole Kanye West Friends in Paris book, was that through Cool Accidents? Or was
that's straight up.
That's those guys.
Straight up Bianca.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, a few things they've done recently. They did the, obviously with the Hotline Bling thing going proper mental, we jumped on that kind of at the perfect time and cut it to Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty great. An early one we did was like Skrillex and Diplo, and Skrillex was holding a guitar, and Skrillex is a Warner artist, and I just put the caption, how do I make it go wob? And that went mental because you either found it funny or you wanted to defend Sonny Moore, and he was in from first to last, he knows how to play a guitar. And then I was like, he's holding it backwards though, like just baiting, trolling people on my own post to get the engagement up. Probably the best one we ever did was when Kim Kardashian had a crack at breaking the internet with that Paper magazine cover, and her booty just looked like 2 Krispy Kreme donuts, which was mentioned, and there had been a few tweets, but we took it next level, and I painstakingly in paint.net changed the Krispy Kreme logo to Krispy Kim. And then, I've got a few Photoshop people on hand and said, I know this is weird, but can you Photoshop her butt to resemble 2 Krispy Kremes? I can do that. And it went gangbusters. Like, it was, it was in NW magazine. It was on all the top 10 break the internet things. Kim Kardashian on the project was asked about her favourite memes. Yeah. She mentioned the Krispy Kreme one. So I kind of just wanted to hand in my notice after that. I'll drop the mic if I wasn't scared.
That's great. Well, we've got about 10 minutes left, but I do want to get to some questions if there are any real ones on the Twitter feed. But before we leave the panel, I kind of want to ask the guys just a general kind of question and get an answer from each of you. I guess a recurring theme in our conversation today has just been, things are changing all the time online, whether that's technological changes or changes in ownership or changes in the way consumers consume music media. It's in a constant state of evolution. What do you guys think about when you think about the future of music online? I mean, does it scare you or does it excite you that, you know, we have no idea what's around the corner?
Yeah, I'm excited by it just because it is like so unknown. And you mentioned that things are always changing. Like every single week, there's like something changed in the protocol of how we do stuff, either from the local office or from international. And I'm just like, fuck, I just want to settle into a routine and relax. But each week it's like this. And just the fact it's sort of the playing field is so leveled that I think that's fertile grounds for exciting shit. Like I'm the sort of old fogies, the old guard of music journalism, they're all sort of stagnating, and there are new voices. Like every time Kish submits something to Thump, I'm just like, this is fucking incredible. And like I'm like,
agreed.
I feel excited and privileged to like read it and put it out to the side, and then like see it get like a huge reaction. I can see the reflection there. I'm not going to turn around. But there is a flip side to it, because there is like unknown things where, like Jess Hopper was doing amazing things at Pitchfork, and I'm like, cool, this is good, but how sustainable is it? And then like she tweeted 2 days ago, oh, this is my last day at Pitchfork.
There
I'm like,
you
well,
go.
fuck, like what's going to happen to the Pitch, which was such a vital platform. And yeah, so there's exciting things, and can people tweet more so I'm off the screen? And yeah, so it's exciting, but it's mostly positive, I think. Like in general, like, I'm not positive about my career in music journalism. Like I'm not going to buy a house from it anytime soon.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens.
But you still look, obviously, a lot of passion and excitement for it.
Definitely. Like I'm in my 20s. I can still fuck around and go, cool, I get free tickets to AC/DC. This is the best job ever.
That's pretty cool.
But when I'm 35, that might be a bit more pathetic. But then again, if AC/DC is still touring, I'll be still excited.
What about you, Lucy?
I'm excited. I think the best thing about the internet is like we can watch and we can see what our readers want and what our readers want to read and what they're interested in, and we can adapt and change, and that's kind of exciting. It's more exciting than being potentially, I feel like we have more flexibility and more like freedom to kind of be more creative and have a much more exciting kind of every single day that we work is more exciting because we get to be more creative. And I think that being able to connect with our audience and see what we want to do, it's the best type of media to be in. I couldn't think of anything better.
Thank you. And Laura?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an exciting time. Like, it's a lot more easier for bands. Like, I'm in a band myself, and it's easier to get your music out there now because, like, social media is there, and, like, you can create your own identity and, you know, generate fans and people interested in your music and stuff like that through that way. And it's constantly changing, so there's just going to be more opportunities. I mean, it's going to make things harder to make money from it, but you just got to kind of think outside the box and, you know, use your initiative and stuff now. So
absolutely. And Kish?
Yeah, I agree. I'm super excited as well. Yeah, I think the way everything's changing is super interesting, and I guess everyone's biggest problem with it right now is that there's no money in it.
Right.
But who knows what'll happen, I guess. Traditional forms of media are kind of boring and done, so I'm excited to see what will happen with something that's really new. And
yeah,
and I think it's really interesting as well how just like music journalists are becoming celebs in their own right.
Absolutely.
Like I go to like, if
Jessica
Megan
Hopper,
Garvey, Jessica Hopper, I go to like read Megan Garvey, Ayesha, A. Siddiqui, all these people that I really respect, and when they write about something, I'll read about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's exciting myself. Yeah.
Regardless of what publication they go to or something, you begin to follow the journalists, and I guess social media allows you to do that so much easier than in times before.
Yeah, it's sick.
Matthew?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably the strongest take home out of it, because we talked earlier, Lachlan mentioned, you know, Beat Mag, and back in the day, like, you know, that was your source for finding out about music, and the game's done changed, because I just am drawn to writers, you know, people that are putting passion and excitement into it. It's a shame Tommy from Sound Doctrine couldn't be on this panel today, because he's one of the best to do it, in my opinion, because he just delivers it in such a slapstick kind of crazy way. Music criticism online isn't dying or isn't going to die, but it's so much easier now. if I see a long form article and I go on and there's like a SoundCloud embed or a YouTube embed, I'm going to hit play on that before I've even read a word, because within 5 seconds, my personal music taste knows whether I'm going to like it.
Sure.
So it's exciting that there are writers, especially locally, especially in Melbourne. And if you write well, hit me up at mackie@warnermusic.com, because I'm always looking for people to come on board, and you get paid.
There you go. Anybody looking to contribute, that's an amazing opportunity. Now, let's see what we've got. Maybe we'll pull 3 or 4 questions. I think we have about 5-6 minutes left. Go for it. The question is, can a serious music website without SEO or clickbait posts survive in 2015? 16.
What year are we in?
Yeah, we've got pretty shitty SEO at Thump, to be honest, and we don't really do clickbait, in my opinion. It's just about good content. It's sites with good content can also die, like Mess and Noise. Crawl Space was amazing, then it kind of got revived.
Yeah.
And it just needs people that are passionate behind it. And I think sites that rely on SEO and clickbait, they're the ones that are going to die off more so than anything else.
Sure. Laura, I want to throw this one at you. How important is the aesthetic or look of your blog or website?
I think it's really important. The look is something that I definitely put a lot of attention into. I mean, I don't know if any of you have really looked at sample size, but we're really colourful and pretty, I think, and that sets the tone of what your site's about, I guess. Like, the first impression is what people see, and that's going to be the aesthetic of your blog. And as a music publicist, when I'm looking at blogs or new blogs, I'll look at their aesthetic, and if it's really gross, I'll be like, ew, and get out of it.
Right.
It's also important money-wise, because if your blog looks like shit, why the fuck would you want to put ads on it?
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense. Like with Tone Deaf,
This
like
is
we
true.
change it every couple of months. Well, maybe every 10 months, because like people get tired of seeing the same thing, and like especially also like money-wise, so advertisers will get tired of seeing the same thing. And if you can be more innovative with how you integrate your advertising into the layout of your website, that's also going to be beneficial money-wise.
Absolutely. No, I think I'm interpreting this question right. How important would you say it is to have your own space on the web, i.e. your own site, versus other platforms? Now, I presume this is coming from the perspective of a aspiring journalist. I do notice that a lot of music journalists these days have their own folios and sites where they compile everything. Is that something you guys would recommend? Kish, I know you recently launched your own domain.
Yeah, I have my own site. I don't know if anyone looks at it though. It's a good way to show people you're writing in a really quick way though.
Yeah.
So if I want to contribute to someone or want to write for someone,
You can
I'm
give
just
them
like,
one
hey,
link.
hit up my site. It looks professional and cute, and who doesn't want to be professional and cute, right?
Exactly.
I guess also from a publicist's point of view, like when we're trying to find a journalist for a new, like from a blog or something we haven't seen recently, and trying to find like contact details or like who else they write for and stuff is really hard unless you can find that information. And like at the moment I've been using LinkedIn heaps to try and find journalists, but their email addresses don't come up, and it also tells you when.
Well, I always find that quite interesting from the perspective of a music publicist, is if we want to track down a journalist, we really want a personal email address for them. And I always think, well, how do sites and what are the writing opportunities they're missing out on because you can't get in touch with them?
Admittedly, I think we try and hide from publicists.
Somebody asked, how do readers subscribe to music blogs? Is RSS still something that people use, or is it more of a curated approach when you guys read music blogs online? Lucy, how do you go about it?
My Facebook feed is basically my news feed. Everything that I follow on Facebook is like, maybe because I read a lot more sites than kind of care about what people are posting individually. It's like, that's pretty much my subscription now. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I find my experience is exactly the same. I think if you like a blog, you follow them on Twitter, you follow them on Facebook, and that is the best way to keep up to date with what they're doing.
And that's the good thing about Facebook algorithms, is if you click it, then they know you like it, so it's still going to keep coming up on your thing more than others.
There you go. Do we want to scroll down and see if there was any questions from earlier in the session? maybe we've got time for 3 more. Nothing yet.
Does anyone have IRL questions? Is that a thing we can do here?
No. But what's the best way to promote an event or a single post online as opposed to a whole blog of writing? So the best way to promote an event online, but maybe we'll just take it as that. Laura, as a person, the only person on the panel who plays in a band and is a blogger, how do you recommend someone promote an event? And also, you know, in your experience at Shadow Electric and stuff.
With promoting events, I guess if you're promoting an event on Facebook, be conscious that you can only boost a post with 20% text. So I guess it's better to include like a cool image of something rather than something really boring with lots of text. I don't really know. It just should be short and catchy. Like people on social media and stuff, they don't want to read too much. Like 140 characters is on Twitter, and I guess if you're going much more over that, people soon lose interest. So, you know, tagging all the bands so that they see that you've posted it, so they share it and all that kind of thing, and just keeping it short, sharp, and snappy.
Absolutely.
I think it's knowing your audience too. Like you can play with it, because my favorite music page on Facebook is Alex Cameron.
Right.
And each from CK, his solo project. And every single post he does, like speaking of short, sharp, it's probably like 300-word stories that are just
yes.
Like it's probably like the best music writing on the web on this Facebook page. I asked him to do it for Mess and Noise, and I was like, "Oh, you got the coin?" I was like, "Well."
If anybody, do you follow Jeremy Neal from Brisbane on Facebook as well? If anybody follows Jeremy Neal, you know that you'll find yourselves like in a essay-length hilarious story, and right at the end he'll sting it with, "Oh, and my single comes out tonight," or "My show's tomorrow." It's a very clever way of promoting his things. We'll probably leave it there, but before we do, there's a minor press release that just come through the hashtag. The Ripe TV relaunches to Melbourne and relaunches their site tomorrow in Melbourne. So check it out. That's exciting. Thanks everybody for coming along to the panel today. Let's give a massive round of applause to all of our panelists. If anybody has any further questions for anybody on the panel, you can hit us up at Step Melbourne or like the Step page on Facebook. And I highly encourage you to follow all of these guys on Twitter, Instagram, and so forth.
Is this the last ever Step panel?
This is the last ever Step panel. So thank you all for being a part of it.